Well, hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining us for a special edition of the WTOC First Alert Weather Podcast. Not only is it special because we have meteorologist Dylan Smith joining us in this First Alert Weather Podcast, we actually have some activity to be talking about into the tropics. So, guys, you ready to talk about this activity we got coming up?
Sure. You know, we've been doing it for a few days now, and now we get to take it into next week.
Yeah, definitely going to be looking like it's going to be a busy week as we head into the middle of it.
Yeah, and what we're watching is, we're recording this, as you can see, today is Friday, August 25th. We're watching an area of showers and storms. We're going to get some type of low pressure developing into the Caribbean and eventually into the Gulf, heading into late this weekend. And then by next week, something impacting Florida. Florida looks like it's going to be the bullseye of whatever is trying to develop out there, and we could be kind of on the northern fringe of something. So, again, it's a little bit too early to tell, but we want to make sure that you are aware of that. We'll talk about what we have here. This is the players of what we're looking at coming up here, heading on into next week. Again, there's the low pressure and just kind of a low confidence of, you know, the strength and the track of the system.
Yeah, we've got a couple players in the game right now. Of course, you've got the low that we do expect to develop. Right now, there is no closed, circulation or anything like that. So track models are going to be all over the place, although they are fairly consistent. And then how far south, north, whatever this low goes will be determined in part by a trough that is up above, or how we have it represented there, a front, that blue line on your screen. If it comes a little bit quicker and further south, that's going to keep a lot of the impacts down into Florida. If it stalls out a little bit further north, that could bring in a little bit more rain into the southern portions of the coastal empire.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of uncertainty out here right now across the region. So this is what we expect based on what we are seeing across the area right now. So we know we're going to have some tropical moisture moving into the area from the Gulf through Florida, and it looks like it's going to be moving into our region possibly as early as late Tuesday, more so Wednesday. Wednesday is the day that we have a first alert because that looks like some type of impacts as far as at least some rain showers across the area. Now, the question is, anytime you have a tropical system, whether it's a tropical depression, storm, or hurricane, you're going to get isolated tornadoes with it if you are on the east-northeast side of that storm. That's where our track kind of puts us based on what we're looking at. So we'll have to deal with that possibly coming up on Wednesday. And we have a supermoon out there as well. So a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I would say out of everything that we have talking about right here, definitely going to be looking at the tides to definitely be one of the players that we will have in place regardless of where that front is at. That is one thing. So anybody out on Highway 80, definitely keep a close watch on the forecast next week.
Yeah, to Dylan's point, even if we didn't have a low that we were tracking, you've got higher astronomical tides because of that super moon. It's also a blue moon, so second full moon within a calendar month. Kind of fun there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll be watching that, especially for Wednesday. I'm not expecting huge issues based on the current thinking. That can change pretty quickly with these tropical systems, though.
Yeah, because you never know. Again, things could develop quicker. Again, as Andrew mentioned, we don't even have a closed center of circulation yet. So until we get that closed center of circulation, computer models are not going to have a great handle on what could potentially come on down the road. But right now, they're pretty in good agreement on what's going to be happening with the system. I'm going to show you a couple of our ensemble models.
Let's do it.
I can't see which one this is going to be here first. It looks like it's going to be, if I can look at it.
I would say that's the Euro.
That's the European one, which we're looking at. So you can see as it develops, they do get an area of low pressure. A lot of the ensemble models are tracking through central and northern areas of Florida with the European, and they all have different intensities with that. I think the European is a little bit more the stronger of the two models we look at. More the global models right now would be the European and the GFS. So that's more of the stronger model, which they're looking at right now.
Yeah, sure. And either way, it looks like Florida's going to get wet. It just kind of depends on how much of the state. And for us, the further south you go, closer to that state line of Florida and Georgia, the better chance you will get rain. Could be as early as Tuesday, and then could even have some of that lingering on Thursday. Of course, as we go through the weekend, we don't stop forecasting. We'll keep updating you guys. And of course, by Monday, we're going to have a pretty grand idea of what we can expect going into the middle of the week.
Yeah. And so just show you the contrast here. Here's the GFS ensemble models. And it's a much weaker development of that, progression of that. But they also still kind of have it going down through central and northern areas of Florida, the most of the ensemble model. So consistency is looking more, at least in central and north Florida. But as far as the intensity and the timing, the GFS is a little bit quicker. They're more for Tuesday night for impacts on us. GFS or European is more of a Wednesday. So things to watch.
Yeah, we definitely will hope for more of a daytime thing, so people are, awake for it. Not that we're expecting a widespread like severe weather outbreak, but there is that potential there. Anytime we're on the northeastern side of a circulation, that you could have a little bit better chance for some isolated tornadoes. So on its approach to Florida, if it does make that landfall in Florida, wherever it is, that does put us in the better chance of having at least a tornado threat. Doesn't mean we'll have them, but the threat is heightened for that area.
The one thing that makes me just a little bit nervous, sea surface temperatures, very warm. Look at that. We're looking at current sea surface temperatures in the upper 80s, almost 90 degrees into the Gulf. So I know the computer models takes that sea surface temperatures, a lot of them, into consideration when they're looking at the forecast, but we're well above average with those sea surface temperatures, and that's a lot of fuel for any type of system moving over that. So hopefully, things don't escalate too quickly to the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, definitely not expecting, at least with current model guidance, rapid intensification. That being said, we'll have to watch it closely, like you said, Dave. And, it kind of breaks out of this area of shear really Monday is its day that it could develop, strengthen into either the strong tropical depression or weak tropical storm. Now, I'm not expecting this to become a hurricane, but you never know what happens over the water. So we'll definitely be watching that closely. But if you look at like the 48-hour versus 7-day chances, that's one reason why the 48-hour chances of development are so low, is because low hasn't developed. It's battling shear. It's battling dry air. It has to break away from that. And then that window of opportunity opens. And at that point, while it's drifting northeast, it does have that small window of opportunity to strengthen. So, but it's small. It's not going to be like it's traveling all across the warm Gulf waters. It's a day's chance.
Right, exactly. So a lot of things can happen. I tell you, the next name on the list is going to be a fun one. This is, the Hurricane Center, or next to Hurricane Center, the WPC, the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, sets the names, and they also put out a pronouncer as well. So we need it for the next one, and we're going with Idalia, right? Idalia is what we're going with.
And we want to naturally say Vidalia, so
yes.
Idalia. It's kind of like how we want to say it, because you just take the V off of our town and our inner areas. But no, that is not how it is phonetically put out for us.
Yeah, and that is a pretty good chance that this system could become the Idalia as it moves into the Gulf, as Andrew mentioned, more so later in the weekend into Monday possibly. So we'll continue to watch that one. And there's other activity into the Atlantic as well. So it's not just those two areas. We do have that system, but we also have one active system right now.
Yes, we do. We have Franklin out there right now, and the good news about Franklin is that it's still looking to be pushed out with kind of the general pattern, kind of as the same system that we were talking about. It's going to look ahead probably a little farther north and push out to the northeast, all because of the other features that we have across the country and the fact that we have some high pressure and some cold fronts coming through. And that's going to be, once again, like we talked about, the deciding factor, once again, as to what we're going to be seeing to when this system comes in. Wherever that cold front's at, if it pushes through, not going to look for a whole lot of stuff going on, but if it doesn't, that's when we could see more of those scattered thunderstorm chances, and those could get a little bit intense, it looks like.
It'll be interesting to see, but you notice the motion of Franklin, which is starting to work to the northwest, and then it takes an abrupt turn more to the north and then northeast. That's going to be impacted by that same upper level trough, which will be moving whatever's coming out of the Gulf. So they're both going to be moving generally in the same direction once we get through the beginning and middle of next week. So no real impacts on us. It could try to kick up some higher surf maybe along the coastal areas, but that's it. No rain or wind associated with Franklin. Bermuda, on the other hand, we'll have to watch that. Could be a Category 2 hurricane heading into them by Tuesday, it looks like.
Yeah, but increased swells is really all we would see from this, and it's going to hop on that highway of air in the sky and get on out of here.
Yeah, and there's two other areas out there. We got still have the remnants of Emily. That is looking less and less like it's going to redevelop back into something tropical. And behind that, we also have to the south in that orange area. You see that is Invest 92L. And that's still got I think it's like a 40-50% chance of trying to develop into something. But that's going to remain in the Central Atlantic. So no other impacts besides the Gulf of Mexico coming up for the middle of next week. So that's why we have a first alert. We wanted to do a special podcast just to make sure you were all aware of that. We don't expect to see a lot of any hurricane conditions based on what we're looking at now, but rain showers, maybe some gusty winds. An isolated tornado threat is certainly going to be possible with this being on the north and east side, and elevated tides. Right now, not super flooding, but they're already going to be elevated above normal values thanks to that supermoon out there. So we're looking at 8 something as far as the tides are concerned. I think it's like 8 or something like that, or 8.6 or something to that effect coming up on Tuesday night and into Wednesday. So anything that more about northeast or easterly flow could help raise those tides a little bit. But we're usually good up till about 10.5, 10.2 now since they raised Highway 80 out there. So we could take a little bit higher tides.
Yeah, and something that we haven't talked about is the backside of this system, and likely gets out of here by the second half of Thursday, followed by some cooler air. At least that's what we're thinking right now, wrapping down some nicer, more comfortable air for us as we go into the end of next week, Labor Day weekend. I know a lot of people have a 3-day weekend in some capacity next weekend, and we'll be very happy to hear about this. And that being said, this weekend, hottest temperatures we've got in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, exactly. And look, that's going to feel nice. So right now, this is just one of the computer models spitting out a 10-day forecast. But generally, you see the trend. We go from mid-90s here coming up on over the weekend, to maybe some mid-80s possibly there for next weekend and the end of the week. So a nice, refreshing change, maybe the sign of our first fall.
False fall.
Yeah, false fall. Yeah, exactly. No, the temperatures you see start to rise back up again after that close to 90.
Fool's gold.
So a lot to think about. Just make sure you're getting your daily updates. The First Alert Weather Team is here, including meteorologist Jamie Ertl. She comes in a little bit later, recording this here at 11 o'clock. So she's still not here at work on her regular shift. So that's why she's not doing this podcast. But we're all together, all watching this storm, making sure we have the latest, all our social media platforms. So just continue to get updates. Doesn't look like anything too crazy now, but we are certainly going to be watching this one, and you should as well. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the WTOC First Alert Weather Podcast.